Hi design thinkers, my name is Matthew Sear and today we are going to be able to switch modes inside of our prototypes inside of Figma using a couple of tricks with our variables. So if that interests you, then sit back, relax, and let's jump in the video. Alright, here we are inside of Figma. I've opened up a prototype and we have our window, and over here I put some toggles. So this is just a prototype and all controlled directly through our variables. So we'll be able to switch our modes using variables inside of Figma if we set it up right. So here's the light and dark mode switch. Here's some visibility switches. And this is how we can actually set up a kind of dynamic screen. Beyond that, I can also, for example, go to where we have that asset, and I could actually change it out with another asset, and we will refresh that prototype again. Let's just run it in a preview mode here. We can just refresh that prototype and still be able to use the same switching. So, if you'd like to learn how to set up different modes and switch them dynamically inside of prototypes, then you're in the right place. Let's keep moving on. This is actually quite easy. What we will need is to make sure that, for example, I need to have a collection. I need to have ideally 2 modes of something or more, and I need to be able to switch between them. So here I've got my color modes, got dark and light, and I'm going to use those to switch between for the dark and light mode. I will need to have a switch, something to toggle it on and off inside the prototype. I'm actually just going to duplicate this switch over here, and I will remove the clickable events on it. And I will rename this one to switch to, like so. So there we go. Now the way that this is actually done is quite simple. I have screens, and I have my screens as kind of components. I don't necessarily need to be components, but it definitely helps. And what I also have is what I refer to as a slot. This is just a blank random object that's going to hold information, and it's just going to basically allow other assets, like for example this mock-up design to this dashboard design, to be switched in place of it, pushing it out, and then allowing the asset to be changed to whatever screen you want, which is great. So we need to be able to, for example though, change through the modes. And over here I've done basically kind of 3 different sets to kind of explain 3 different things. For example, just a dark and light mode, there are 2 modes. Ideally, see this gray box around the slot inside? This is kind of like your window, your frame. It tells the box inside, it says, hey, I want you to be dark. I want you to be light mode. And when I drag out from here, I set up a little switch to the side. So let's actually build this. It'll probably make a lot more sense. And then we will start to play around with, more complex variations. I'm going to use this asset. I'm still going to use my dashboard asset. There's not much to it. It just has my colors applied to it. And it also has those other visibility settings applied to it. Doesn't matter with this particular presentation. It's just an asset. What does matter is that we know how to create our slots. So what I can do is I will create a slot like so. What do we got? We have like a 96 and 4. I don't necessarily need to make it the same size, but it definitely kind of helps. Just try to make your slots fit whatever particular frame you need it to fit. Makes the life a little easier. Otherwise, you'll just set up some responsive nature for your slot. I'm going to create this as a component. I'm going to call this, let's say, slot 2. What is important is that slot 2 needs to have some reference to the token that you have added. So the thing like the modes, you know, that means I just need to apply one of my colors. So I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to go apply my gray. I'll just give it some rounding on the corners, just fun. And now it has this gray, which is good. So I could actually go over here and I can see that I have my colors. I got my dark and light mode. Leaving it on auto, great. I'm going to take this slot and I'm actually going to stick it into a new frame. This is going to be something like my window, my frame, the container, whatever you need it to be. And I will turn that also into a component. So I got my frame and I got my slot. Anything that I put inside of my frame will be, anything that I want to switch out inside my frame will be switchable with my slot. I will click on my slot and I'm just going to create an instance. I'm going to make sure that it can get changed out with this dashboard. And I'll just call this my Windows. If I drag that out, you can see that I have a slot, but I can change it out to my actual design. I can now take this and actually create a variable. I'm going to drag it down, I'm going to duplicate it out, and I'm going to call these my modes. And I'm going to make this one light and this one dark. And then what I can do is I can actually set that local layer. And I can say dark. And then I can say to the other one, light. Now remember, you're going to have potentially more screens, more components. Like I've got one, but that doesn't stop you from changing out to any other component-based screen that you have. Honestly, I've had hundreds of component-based screens that are inside of these slots. They get changed out and they will adapt to the frame that holds them, which is like this frame that holds them. And all you need to do is simply just chuck it in the slot. So I can actually now drag that out, and all I need to do is chuck any screen into the slot variable. If I like, I could actually select this frame piece again, where I have those different windows. I could also import another asset, and now I have another asset that I can access and add to the actual slot. But the advantage is that I could actually just change it like so. But this is not changing it in my prototype yet. All that I do need to do from here though is actually start to put that switch in. And I need something to manage the state of what my prototype is in. So I'll show you my local variables. For example, this is a state manager. it manages the states of the components and elements within inside of this screen or prototype. I, for example, started and I added in a text string variable. I call it light, and it could be dark, and that's text string variable will change. I have a visibility variable that also changes. I have also states for like an admin and a member. So let's create our own new actual state manager. So we're going to go new, not new name, new collection. And I'm just going to call this SM state. And I can give it a string. I'll call this modes. And I will start with dark. So there we go. Now I have this state that holds, basically a variable that holds a state that is existent. And I can actually go to this component. Remember, it's a component that's dragged out like so. And I can go over to where that mode is, and I can actually assign that variable right there. So if I was to now type up light, it will now be a light mode. If I type up dark, it will be dark mode. So we're almost there. We just need to have something like a switch in our prototype that will change it. And that's where this comes into place. So I already have a, just an asset just made over here in a component, called it number 2. So it's ready to go. All it is. I haven't added the interactions yet, but we'll add those interactions now. So let me take it from dark mode. So when I go from dark mode, I will go to light mode. I will switch the component, of course, just for, nice, fun. You don't need to. You can set it up in a different way as well. It could be on click, and you could just set the variable. So here, though, I am switching between the two. So I will, when going from dark to light, I will set the new variable that we created. Set, and that will be my SM state mode, and I will set this to light. Make sure you write exactly what is written in the state you made, and then I will switch it back, and I will set the variable, and I will switch this to dark. Like so. I'll grab this frame. I could put it into another frame. Call this slide. Grab out the component, chuck it in there. Let's just put it up into that corner somewhat. And now all I need to do is play test the switch. There we go. So that's all that is to it. We can now simply just change this dark and light mode over by just switching our little switch inside of our frame. This will change this here to dark and light, and in turn will tell the actual frame component that's holding the slot, that's holding whatever's inside the slot. So that could be the dashboard, that could be any other window, any other viewport, any other component inside. So For example, let's just we'll grab the same frame here. I will, let's say, grab that slot, and I'm going to tell, actually, you know what I'll do? Set both those frames, set the frame to auto, and set the frame to auto, and let's tell the asset inside to fill the frame. And now I can actually scale that down, like so. If I was to grab that same slot, let's say throw it in here with that, there you go. I have this object. I could put this one inside of here as well. And when I switch up, what I'll need to do is make sure that it has this attached to it, of course. Just make sure you have your modes attached, of course, and that'd be that. Like so. And, you know, just grab anything else. I do have other variables. Let's go back to local again. Even my switch itself has my switch here itself has actually the color actual token set up inside of it. I could just adjust this frame down like so, and just press play. As you can see, it changes the dark and light mode for that as well. And that's it. That is how to set up the actual changing your modes inside of Figma using the variables. But what I'll do is go through an extra little advanced one just at the end around visibilities and that, so we can get a little bit more there. Let's look at our window over here, and as you can see, we have ourselves a couple of objects inside of our frame. And what we can do is actually assign them the corresponding property. So here I have admin, and on the other one I have the member one. Member. I actually have a collection of visibilities which has admin and member. And what this means is, because I have a collection of admin and member, I can actually grow to this whole dashboard, and I could actually even see the effect of changing this around here. Now, I don't need to create every one, but basically 4 of these states to create this prototype. I only need to know if there's an admin or member. So the way that this one works, I'm going to create it all from scratch, but just for the more advanced users, what I have over here is just a setup of logic when the switches are taking place. Just like dark and light mode, where we were able to switch between the two, we're only switching between 2 different modes. Here, we have a little bit more logic. For example, go to prototype mode. I'm actually using an if statement here. So what I'm saying is, on click with this, I'm turning it off. So while I'm turning it off, I'm going if the member is equal to true. So if the member, this is the admin, but if the member is equal to true, then we set it to the state of the member using a text string variable. If, and then we set the admin to off. And then here I have it where in this case that the member was not true, the member was false, we set the visibility to none, which is the none visibility state or mode. And we set, of course, the admin to false. We still then change the move over, change to the other component, and rinse and repeat. When the actual member is true, we're checking if the admin is visible, and if the admin is actually visible, we set it to being admin visibility, and we set the member off likewise. And it's just basically the flip side. And the way that we need to manage that in our actual local variables is to make sure that we have our kind of token set. This is applied to the asset. So this manages the asset, the token set manages the asset. And then our state manager manages the existing state that we are in right here. And what I need the state manager to know is I need the state manager to know admin and member, and then I need it to have a text string, and that text string refers to the specific slot. So for example, I have all of my slots laid out inside of my window frames, and they're just a rectangle inside of a box. That rectangle gets replaced by the screen that I want within it. And all that I need to do is make sure that I have a frame that has the all. So all is visible. Admins are just visible. Members are just visible, or none is visible. And then I also have that dark and light mode. And all that I will do is for this, slot, this window, this frame, whatever, I will apply my corresponding variables to the correct actual part of this component that controls the modes. And with this, that's how I can control the different modes by having a frame that tells the child slot component to change and adapt according to what it is. For this visibility, you will need to also assign the slot component the one of the variables so that you can access that variable and add that through to your layers to the top. This slot component has an admin applied to it. So when I've applied the visibility of admin to just the slot asset, I can access the layers above here, and I can be able to change them. And I can create the different combinations that I need to be able to change it out with. But once I've made this asset, I don't need to make any other assets. I just need to use this, and this will control my modes for all of my screens with all my assets and components within inside of it. So that's the more advanced. If you like to hear a lot more, I've got a lot more to go through, but to keep this video shorter, I won't get into them right now. Please, though, leave a comment in the description box below. Like, subscribe, all of those great things. But until next time, design thinkers, keep making amazing things, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you.